One of the other areas that educators sometimes struggle with is personalized learning. And this is a lot like the rubric debate, where you can find people on a lot of different ends of the spectrum here related to how useful personalized or differentiated learning is, how necessary it is it, how should it be done to the point that it's actually effective? And you're going to find debate on this on all sides, largely because the content is different and the students are different and the ultimate goal of the course is different and the amount of time required is different. And I find is a much hotter debate in face-to-face classrooms than it is in online. People who've worked in online almost never argue about personalized or differentiated learning because it's easy. It's easier for us to do it. So we don't really tend to argue very much about it because it allows you to scaffold learning for students in a way that actually makes sense for them. And it allows you to do that fairly easily and in a way that, as you've figured out by now, you do it once, you set it up a certain way and then you don't have to do much in order to maintain it going forward. Depending on, and you see the little chart from William and Mary here, that's just kind of a helpful guide around the reasons for it and how it could potentially look, in different classroom settings. I can always tell when these things are developed, though, by people who are teaching humanities of some kind. That's usually, the way that this is done. You get more into some of the hard sciences and there's a little bit more debate around it. But regardless of how you feel about getting students some individual workload, it's very easily done in online learning. It's so much easier in these platforms. And so it's one of those things that we're going to look at in a little more detail. First, I'm going to break it down just into some really basic things that, regardless of how you feel about personalized or differentiated learning, you have to respond to an IEP, so you're already doing it. Whether you realize it or not, if you have an IEP, you have to do it. There's really no way around it. So providing those kinds of accommodations for students is partly what we're talking about here. But also we'll talk a little bit about groups and how to set things up so that it's a little bit easier for students to find their own way, with their learning. And that's just sort of being responsive to what the school needs you to do or what parents need you to do. But we can also get a little more depth into the mastery side of learning. The tools are getting better than they were in the past, but they're still not there. It's still a little bit clunky. So I'm going to show you what it does and what it has the potential to do, but know that it's not quite, where we want it to be at this point. So the first thing I would point out, you can see a couple of different things that you can do to try to address student needs. And one of them is always polling, either interest polling, or you can certainly check grades. If you use the goals or it's outcomes in Canvas, the outcomes feature in Canvas, you can get a much better sense of where students are as far as specific skills. That might be something that every school approaches outcomes differently, and it looks different in the dashboard from school to school. So I don't want to get too much into that. Just know that you can tag specific outcomes, standards, things like that to to your different assignments or your different grades, and then you can break down those grade reports. Again, we can't go into detail because I don't have demo examples, but once you get grades into your grade book, you'll be able to see with a lot more clarity where students are going to need specific help and what things you need to reemphasize. You've already done this, I'm sure plenty of times in your face-to-face classroom, just using a standard gradebook. But as far as the quizzes go and the polling goes, what you can do is you can set up a poll at the very beginning of class, just trying to understand what it is that they're interested in. What do they want to learn? What are the areas that they're most excited about? And that's really just in the quiz section here. So I'll just take my quiz again, kind of as an example. And let's see, if I go into edit, I just want to show you kind of those polling or those question types so that you can see that. So for the questions, if I wanted to, and again, just to look here, you can create a new question. Question group is just, if you have specific, groups of questions, the way to organize, your different quizzes. It's not used all that often. And find questions actually allows you to go into your own course or other courses that you've taught to see if you can find specific questions that are tagged with things. So if I go into new question, then I can kind of see all of my options here. And if you're polling students, then, you can certainly do multiple choice or, true, false, or certainly the easy things, multiple blanks, that sort of thing. Um, there's not really like a Likert style question, which is sort of your standard strongly agree, strongly disagree. There's definitely no semantic differential, which is kind of my favorite. It's along a range of I'm not going to go into that. That's research stuff. Sorry. But basically, there's not a whole lot as far as like traditional survey style questions. You just have to create them. But you'll use the quizzes feature for that. There's really no like separate polling or quizzing feature. You can embed Google Forms. You can embed Socrative and Poll Everywhere. All of those things you can integrate into Canvas. Remember, Canvas is just your platform. It's just your landing platform. You can springboard anywhere you want to go. How well it integrates with Canvas, really depends on if if it's already a tool that's available in your settings, or if it's got to be added. How seamless it is really depends on a lot of things with your system. But at the very, very least, you can link and it will go outside of your system. Just know that with Canvas, anytime you link those things to outside tools, once you go outside of them, the data resides outside of the system. And that may not seem like a very big deal, but once you get really, really good at this, you're going to realize how valuable that data is and how good it makes you as a teacher. And the fewer places that you have to go in order to retrieve that data, and the less manipulation you have to do to get these platforms to all talk to each other, the easier it's going to be for you to diagnose very, very specific issues with your teaching or with your students so that you can improve over time, which is really, the huge benefit to these tools. Okay, the other thing is groups. And in order to create groups, all you need to just do is go to people, and you will see that there are group settings right here. You've got all the lovely people who are enrolled in the program. And then all you need to do is just create a group set, and you can call it whatever you like. You can allow them to self-sign up for it, depending on what your objective is within the course. You can split students into certain groups. You can manually create the groups. You can put them, in yourself, or you can just self-sort. But that's a very easy way to put students in terms of their interests. If you've reviewed their performance and you want to put them into mixed ability groups or something like that, then you can certainly do that in here. So however you choose to do that, it does give you quite a few options. Once students are in those groups, then they have their own set of tools. They can have their own discussions. They can share documents. You may want to stick with Google on that. Google Drive is just a lot better and a lot easier as far as collaboration tools, but just know that they do have some of those in here. And sometimes, honestly, when students are online, they're going to find their own way to collaborate, and every group is going to do it a little bit differently. So if you insist on them using tools within Canvas or within Drive, which you presumably have access to as well, then you'll be able to see the interactions. You can interact with them, or you can just kind of record it and keep it for your own information. So, all of that, it really just kind of depends on what you need and how much data you need access to. That whole data and review and everything might not be a big deal to you right now, but long term, believe me, it's going to be very, very helpful for you. All right. So the one other thing I wanted to point out was with the quizzes, and talking about IEPs and accommodations, and you can do that really by going over to this moderate this quiz option. So anytime you create or go in and edit a new quiz, you can have, several different options available here. So if you've got individual students who need different accommodations, you can have extra attempts. So you can have extensions here. You can unlock them for the next attempt if you have it blocked, things like that. So what I would do really is, depending on what is needed, go to whoever's in special school district or your point of contact for that student, find out what they need, and then if they don't know the tools in Canvas that are specifically going to help them for this issue, then definitely talk to your tech team, because it's slightly different for each platform. It really just depends on how it's set up, if you have the default settings or if you've added new things. So definitely check with them if it's not immediately apparent to you, and I mean really within 5 minutes. If you can't figure out how to make this work for a student, then go to the experts, and ask them for help. They can definitely help you out. The last thing that I would tell you is if you're just flat out exempting a student from something, all you have to do is go into the grades area, and when you look at everybody's individual attempts at something, let's say I've got, let's see, this would be an essay. So I've got an essay here, and Marilyn, congratulations, you're exempt. Okay. All I have to do is click EX, and then it's listed as excused, and she doesn't have to do it. So that's really, kind of the easiest way to just, if you're exempting students from things. It's manual and it's annoying, but it can, it can be done, and then it's a good note for you about what you will need to do kind of going forward.